Hello, everybody. Oh, let me just check my audio levels. Testing. Check, check, check. Check, check. Okay. Sorry, I should have done that before. I switched microphones. So, how is everybody doing? Welcome back to our weekly live stream hangout for the Multilingual Book Club. Can you all just confirm, or can somebody confirm in the chat if sound is good, video is good? As always, just want to make sure before we get too far into the live stream. Hello, Jackie. It is great to see you. Mir geht's gut, danke. Und dir? Wie geht's dir? Wow, haven't spoken German at all in months, so that's kind of fun. Yay! Meru, hisashiburi. Mauricio, good to see you. Margherita, ciao. Grazie di confermare. Confermare? Confermare. How is everybody doing? How was your week? Of course, we are here to discuss the live stream. As always, let me know what you are drinking, if you are drinking anything. And if you have snacks, let's call out all the snacks in the chat. I am actually drinking fennel tea, which is one of my favorites. I personally adore fennel, both as a tea, but I also really like fresh fennel. This was sent to me from a very kind person in Germany. So thank you if you're out there. So yeah, what are you all drinking or whatever it is you have this evening? Mir geht's gut. Oh, mir geht's auch gut, danke. Oh, the sound is glitchy. Is it glitchy for anybody else? I hope that it's not. Salut, Yassine. Ah, ja, Linda. Aha, das ist korrekt. Ich habe ein bisschen auf Deutsch geschrieben. Wow, Bianca is eating pancakes and drinking water. I like that. Very nice combination. Hallo, Caro. Es ist sehr gut, dich zu sehen. It's so funny, like speaking some German today. Hey, Norma. It's good to see you. So Norma's having toast and coffee. That is exactly what I would be doing if it were 9 a.m. here. Cindy's got a smoothie. Very cool. Okay, thank you very much. I will, I'm going to turn the microphone down a little bit. Testing, testing, check, check, check. Okay, hopefully that is better. Heute ist Deutschtag. Genau. Meru has chamomile tea today with freshly baked lemon cake. Oh my God. Just had to pull out the lemon cake, you know? I love lemon desserts so much. Hey, Lisa, enjoy the orange pop. You know what I mean? It's book club, Sunday evening. It's all about having fun. So it's great to see everybody. I'm really, really excited. Yeah, so let's kind of get started. I'm going to be completely honest with you on my side, as I always am. This has been a very, very interesting week for me. So it's been one of these super, super, super intense weeks where I was working crazy hard on the short documentary style video that I just put out on Friday evening. And I'm not kidding. I mean, I worked on that video all day, every day. And it was a tough project. I loved it. It was an amazing experience. I hope you all liked it if you had a chance to watch it. If you haven't watched it, it would mean the world to me if you do. But so I say that because, to be honest, this was one of those weeks where life happened for me, and for some reason, yeah, that project just completely consumed me, and I just wasn't able to get much reading done. Like I can't really describe it. I'm not sure if any of you have had a similar experience, but I think the fact is life happens sometimes, and so this week in particular, I didn't really get to do much reading. So today I did. So today I just about finished um, my reading goals, but that's pretty much it. So yeah, I'm behind. However, I'm honestly still feeling quite positive because I've been really happy with the difficulty level of this book for me. And I have found that when I do sit down and when I am able to just sit down and focus and enjoy myself, I can read a lot more than my goal. Like if I just gave it a couple of hours, I could probably read a lot more. So I'm actually still very optimistic and I'm feeling very, very determined to make, next week, the most amazing week for the book club for myself, for my own experience in the book club. Um, so that's me. So if anybody else had a difficult week with the book club or reading or anything else, I want you to know that this is definitely a safe place to share that. Like I've had a hard week with my reading. So if anyone else did, please feel free to share in the chat. And there's definitely nothing wrong with that. But of course, as always, I would love to hear everybody's experience. I want to know, how's it been going? Hello, Edward. I'm very happy that you're here, Edward. It's good to see you. Natalia, hallo, und alle Mitleser. Wow, we have so much German going on. Die Doku war episch. Ich wusste nicht dieses Wort, episch, aber auf Englisch, ich liebe epic sagen. Also, ja, ich werde das, what's the word? I guess üben. I'll practice using that word. I'm glad. Okay, so Cindy says also behind, but feeling optimistic about catching up. And same thing for Meru. Yeah, I think who else? Is anyone else here that had like a kind of a slow week with your reading? Wow. So Alemán Explicado says it's going well, or it went well, and they are on chapter 58. Very, very nice. Juan, greetings from Colombia. Saludos. Yeah, let's hear about it. How Jackie, you're in the chat. How is your week for the book club? Sorry to call on you. I'm just trying to stimulate some chat here. Oh, very nice. So Iseli99 says they were the opposite. They were able to keep up with their plan. Very, very nice. Victoria says that she started this past week, so only a few pages in of The Alchemist in Spanish. Very, very cool. Peter says, I started reading in my native language. Feels a bit strange after reading in foreign languages. Yeah, I've been reading a lot recently, which I'm very happy about, because that's really something I love doing, and I've struggled over the last few years. So I'm reading a lot recently. Some very nice books that I'll be making a lot of videos based on. So I'm reading a lot of nonfiction in English, and then of course reading fiction in my foreign languages. So I find that to be an interesting way to sort of separate them. Pretty much all the fiction that I read and pretty much all the fiction I've read for many years has only been in foreign languages. So it's kind of like my fiction reading is just reserved for foreign languages, which is interesting. Does anybody else do that? Like separate your reading activities across things like that? I'm kind of curious. So Caro says, I've had a weird week, but I've already finished the book the week before. Caro is a machine. You know, we have a lot of participants like that. I would say Caro, Linda, and Edward. Siete delle macchine da guerra. You are war machines when it comes to all of this, all this stuff. It's great to see. Let's see, Natalia. Oh, actually, chapter 52, very, very nice. Margherita Dolce Vita. I surprisingly finished the book on Friday night. Wow, didn't expect that, but I was in the flow and I read 40 pages in one go. You know, I have to say, I'm finding the format of this book with the very, very short chapters, for me, it makes it very easy to just read more and more and more. Like, I find it very easy to get into a flow with this book. So there was 1 or 2 evenings on the first week where I read way past my target. And that's kind of why I'm optimistic about, you know, being able to catch up. But it's very interesting. I really feel like specifically the format of this book just seems to make it really good for reading in a foreign language, you know, especially if reading a novel is something new to you, or if it's quite a challenging thing to do, which I think for lots of us, reading literature is challenging to some level. So yeah, I'm finding this format has been really conducive to this project, I guess, which is interesting. Like, I think often maybe you would choose a book based on the overall level, the overall complexity. You know, is it a crime novel where the whole point is to sort of confuse you and kind of catch you out? Or is it a romantic comedy? I don't think we often necessarily pick a book based on the format, but yeah, it's just really, really interesting, I think. So Birgit says, I'm hopelessly behind, and I've decided to change the book and continue with a graded reader at A1. Yeah, I think that's fine. I think that that's a smart move. Like, at the end of the day, if the book is really difficult for you, you know, and if it's starting to not only make you behind, but if that is also then, you know, making you discouraged and you're losing motivation, then I think it's perfectly fine to listen to yourself, listen to your body and your heart, you know, and make the change that you need. So I think that's a great thing. Edward says, I couldn't join last week. We were on holiday. Started on Monday and finished it on Tuesday. Ti ho detto, sei una macchina da guerra, Edward. By the way, is this phrase correct? Am I saying it correct, Margherita? If you could let me know. I feel like somebody told me that once in Italian. Sei una macchina da guerra. Which I believe you can also say in Spanish. Eres una máquina. And I know you can say eres una máquina, but can you say una máquina de guerra? I'm not sure. Let's see. Christian says, hello, Robin. Greetings from Colombia. Saludos. I'm struggling with my reading because of the lack of time. I'm a clinician, but I have been trying to practice Portuguese and English. Yeah, you might find it... I mean, you might, with your work schedule, are you able to have a set time for your reading, or is your schedule sort of changing all the time? If your schedule's changing a lot, one thing you might try is anchoring your reading activities to something concrete in your day. So for example, one thing you could do is say, I'm going to spend 30 minutes reading before my work begins. So even if your work changes a lot, even if your work on one day might start at 9 a.m., on one day might start at 7 a.m., just saying that no matter when I start work, I will make 30 minutes before that. That could really help. Or I'll make 30 minutes before bed, or, like anchoring your reading or your language studies to a specific activity in the day that you know is going to happen instead of saying, I'll read at, 5 p.m. I find that the first option is way more reliable because in my experience, when we try to schedule things and we say, I'll do this at 10 o'clock, I'll do this at 1 o'clock, I'll do this at 3 o'clock, it always goes behind schedule. And then the further the day goes on, the less likely we are to actually accomplish it. Turn down my light. Anyway, so those are some thoughts from me. I hope it's helpful. Norma says, slower week, but very happy with reading being more fun. That's great to hear. I feel I took some pressure off myself. I'm okay with being behind, but I'm also optimistic I'll catch up in due time. Absolutely. Hey, Norma, we're in this together, right? So let's all catch up. We can do it, ISO99 says, I haven't written anything on Journaly yet. So I have to say, I have not either. Now, I was going to, on Monday, I was going to write a post about my first week, because that was my plan. But to be honest with you, I was so behind. This week, honestly, especially Monday, it was just so intense for me. And so, if I'm being honest, I could have written the post, but I realized I'm just rushing just for the sake of writing something so I can, color in my planner. And I think that's an important distinction. I think there's no point in doing something that takes all the substance out of it, just for the pure sake of saying I did it, right? So I decided not to actually publish one for that reason, because I thought, look, the week's passed, life happens, and I'd rather be just honest, not just with all of you, but I'd rather be honest with myself and not just do something superficially just so I can feel good, about crossing it off on my activity sheet. So I have not written on Journaly yet, but I would definitely, I'm looking forward to doing it. And I look forward to taking my time and doing it really genuinely, right? Not just to tick off the box, So Claire says, I have finally received the books in Italian in Argentina. Very cool. Looking forward to starting, although it might be a long process. You got this. Animos. I look forward to hearing not just your updates, but your success in the following live streams. So Nicholas, or Nick, is it? I cannot read. I believe it's Greek. Is it Nikolaus? I'm guessing. I'm going to call you Nico. Says, I just read in which language I feel like reading, to be honest. So Jackie says, I love the first book, but this week I struggled because I didn't yet fall in love with the second book. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's actually a good point. So I guess you're talking about Novecento, right? Yeah, that is interesting. Interesting how the connection you have with the book, or lack thereof, can impact your output, right, during the week. That's actually really interesting. I'm glad you loved the first book, though. Alemán Explicado says, I spent a whole hour roaming the internet trying to find the Japanese ebook version and couldn't find it. Yeah, I have to say, I've seen several people try to find specifically the ebook of the Japanese version, and I've not seen anybody successfully find it yet. So unfortunately, it might not exist, which is a shame. Valzeri, first time here. Welcome to the Literally, welcome to the club, the book club. Linda says, I only normally read in foreign languages. I just don't buy books in German. Yeah. And yeah, Margarita, congrats. I love that we're congratulating each other for our successes in the chat. Let's see. So Claire asks a question. What level are people finding Seta to be? That's the Italian title of the book, Silk. I started Italian about 4 months ago and about a high A2, but I know Spanish, so I'm hoping it will help. I think this is a really good level for people who are like getting into reading literature. I mean, I would say learning Italian for 4 months and jumping into this is pretty quick, but certainly Spanish might help you. Yeah, I'm curious to know how people have found it. Let's see. Cairo just reads in German for work. Yeah, because Cairo, you are I believe you're a PhD student, right? Is that correct? So you must have a lot of reading to do for your work. I hope I'm not misremembering that. Michael says, I got distracted by some other language-related things. I also realized I won't finish the book until late October, so I decided to start reading a more Halloween-appropriate book in addition. Very cool. By the way, I'm going to make sure I have a sip of my fennel tea while it's still nice and hot. Oh, it's so good. So good. Okay. So Margarita is a bookworm. Used to reading a lot in my L1, so once I'm comfortable with the language and the book, sono una macchina da guerra. Perfetto. I'm very happy. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I thought so, because I know in Spanish, so Edward is sharing that in Catalan, you can say it's una máquina, and in Spanish, eres una máquina. Sorry, una máquina. Interesting. So yeah, I think Italian is kind of unique with adding the da guerra, which I think is really, it adds to it, right? You can be a machine, but a war machine, that's serious. I definitely think, Edward, you are a máquina da guerra for sure. So Merrily C says, I find that when I highlight words and look at them at the end of the day, it works really well because at the end of the week, when I reread everything, I tend to suddenly remember and know all the words I originally struggled with. Yeah, honestly, I have to say that strategy has been working really well for me. I've been underlining, but it's really working well. Like this is an example of a couple of my pages. Let's see if you can see that. I'm not sure if you can see. There are these underlines. So I don't have that many. I probably have like 5 or 6 per page, sometimes less, sometimes more, but I'm really liking that strategy. Margherita says, you can also say, nessuno mi ferma più. Has a very similar meaning. Interesting. Michelle. Oh, good to see you, Michelle. I'm so glad you made it. Been a hectic week. I am too behind, but I'm not worried. I'll get there. Well, this is interesting. So Jackie says, I'm just thinking how I would say una máquina da guerra in German in this situation. Would Germans also say, du bist ein Wich? Is that like vehicle? Or is that just an Austria/me thing? In German, you could say, du bist eine Maschine. Interesting. Or du bist eine Kriegmaschine. Right, that's very, that's interesting. Agnivo says, do you know any Hindi? I do know some Hindi. I used to know a lot more. But I used to go to this Indian cafe very often. And, I just thought, come on, I'm coming here like 2 times a week. I have to at least make an effort. So I learned how to say things like, you know, whatever the food is, and then milega to say like, please give me XYZ. I learned how to say like meachahun, like I'm doing fine. Tike, I'm doing okay. I learned how to say a lot more stuff back then. These days, I don't remember as much. Yeah. So I hope that I still remembered that correctly. Meru points out, it seems like a lot of people are behind with the book, and it also seems like most of us had a weird week last week. Yeah, you know what? I really like, let's take this as a really good opportunity to like come together. I know some of you are just killing it. So for you, let's keep killing it. But for all the rest of us who had a weird week, like let's really take it upon ourselves to come together and let's really make this next week. I think for me, what I would like, I want it to just be consistent, just to be kind of normal, I guess, like for me, this week was weird in that it was just so different than usual. It didn't have any kind of normalcy. I basically dropped everything to make that video. So I think for me, I just want to have some like consistency this next week, and I guess balance. I want to do more things. I want to get back to my habits, my learning. So I suggest let's make a plan, for this time next week on our next live stream. Hopefully we can all share how great this week was. Hey, Brian's here. Good to see you, Brian. So Brian says, I hope you're well. Thank you. I hope you are as well. I decided to try Novecento first, but I was in holiday in Wales, so not much happened, but I'll be trying again soon. I wish you the best of luck, Brian. I'm sure you're going to make it. Hey, Jahira, I'm so glad that you came here for the chill, relaxed atmosphere, which to that end, I'm going to have some more tea here. So I seem to have started a whole discussion about this phrase in the chat, which is really fun. Linda has contributed "Du bist ein Tier." That's funny. And then Arbeitstier. Very, very interesting. Okay, so let's see. What else do we have in the chat? Bridget says, we Germans don't relate to war if possible. We'd rather say, du bist eine Arbeitsmaschine. Yeah, I see. Jahira says, hi, Robin. I hope you've been well. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on why you chose paper books over ebooks. You don't seem to use them often. No, I actually do have a lot of ebooks. I do have a Kindle. I've been reading. There's a book I've been reading for for a couple of months now on my Kindle. I've got to be honest. This is a constant conflict in my life. Like and it's very genuine. Like, I mean, I genuinely feel so conflicted because I actually do like reading on my Kindle, for example. And of course, it's incredibly practical, like, and I just went through moving from the US, and I really thought I was going to be able to find a way to ship my books, because many of you will know I had these gorgeous bookshelves in my last home. I had actually collected a lot of books, and a lot of those books were very special to me, including a lot of textbooks. I had a lot of textbooks that I had not gone through yet. I had a ton of data science stuff. I had a ton of stuff on everything from various machine learning topics to I had a few textbooks on cryptography. I had all kinds of stuff, and I had to donate almost all of them. I managed to basically save all the foreign language books. Like I refuse to get rid of those. but almost every book I had in English, I had to donate it, and it truly broke my heart. And so, yeah, the fact is, if all of those were ebooks, I would have been fine. I love and adore, you know, physical books. Like I legitimately treat them as artwork. Some of you may remember in my old apartment in Oakland, I literally I would stage the books and make them a piece of my scenery, like on videos. Like I I truly adore holding a book, and I don't know what to do about it. Like I basically these days what I'm doing is when I buy books for sort of purely knowledge and research purposes, right? Because a lot of my videos as we move forward are going to be more and more that documentary style, which I'm really excited about. And I tend to do a lot of reading in preparation for those videos. So I kind of see that as like my research for my work. Um, so those books I'm buying ebooks most of the time now. And then I typically, when it comes to literature and books that are really special to me, I buy them as hard copies. But I'm curious to read people's thoughts in the chat. I know that reading ebooks, of course, also has a lot of utility for language learning because you can use dictionaries and all sorts of other tools. I just love, I love holding a book. But yeah, I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts in the chat. Although I'm not sure if this is going to spark a huge. Is it controversial? I feel like it's kind of controversial in the best way possible. Like it's a friendly controversial, but it feels like it's quite polarizing. So yeah. Let's see. Oh, so Meru points out that she read somewhere the Italian version is about a B1 level, but I think the French version is B1, B2. Yeah, if I'm honest, I think anytime you're reading like full-on native literature, it's got to be around a B2 at least. I personally think. I mean, I think the format really helps to make this feel more manageable. But reading literature is hard. I mean, relatively, right? It's challenging. But yeah, we still have the conversation happening about the phrase. Let's see. What else do we have here? Okay. So I'm trying to find my place in the chat. The chat like jumped for me, so now I lost where I was. Okay. So Jahira says, speaking of analog methods, when reading books, do you prefer to take written notes versus digital ones, and why? I hope you don't mind the questions. I enjoy hearing about your take on these things. So normally, I usually took physical notes when it came to reading. So years ago, when I was documenting my first Spanish novel, that was so much fun. That was such a long time ago now. But I have a series on that. I think it's called The Joy of Reading Books in Foreign Languages. Back then, I took physical notes. So these days, I do take digital notes, primarily because I share those on Patreon. So on Patreon, people get access to my notes. And I was really happy because I think Norma told me that she was like, they were helpful. Like she was actually able to, because she's reading the book in Italian as well. And so I take all the notes in Italian and people can just take them and use them, right? Saves you a ton of time. But I will say there is a massive utility there, right? Because I take my notes inside of Notion, and like I have like a table for the vocab in particular, and it's really useful because I can tag everything. I can search, so I can, at any moment I could do a text search. If I wanted to make a flashcard deck for some reason later, I could just copy paste things, one by one. So yeah, I love taking handwritten notes, but I will say it's very slow. And I think honestly, that's my problem in general. I love taking notes, and I am the slowest reader, and I'm also very slow at writing, and I like to make everything beautiful. So I'm finding that taking notes digitally is quite helpful for me because it prevents me from my tendencies to spend like an enormous amount of time. And by the way, I'm also that person who will take notes, and if they don't look nice, I will just rewrite everything later to make it look nice. So that's my take. I'd love to hear everybody else's thoughts. Let's see. So Christian says, I learned something about if the book is appropriate for you. If you do not have 10 to 20 words per page, you have to read a book with less level than the current one. What do you think, Robin? Okay, so I have a lot of thoughts on that, and I personally do not agree. Now, there is some good scientific basis behind that, right? This is where we talk about the very academic sort of definition of extensive reading and the sort of supporting arguments right behind that. So I'm not saying it's wrong, but I don't agree with saying that as a blanket statement, right? I don't. There's no way you can just say completely generalizing everything. If there are 8 words per page you don't know, it's too hard, right? First of all, some books have smaller, like font size than others. Some languages have, like, for example, French tends to be a lot longer than English, as an example. Whereas in Mandarin Chinese, you could get way more words on a page because words are made up of 1 or 2 characters most of the time. So I don't agree with just like, first of all, saying across the board in general, right? Now, typically, extensive reading, the sort of academic literature on that, they will use a percentage, right, which I think is better. But again, I just think it's so subjective. It's at the end of the day, there are some pages in this book where I might have more than that. I might have a pretty high percentage of words underlined, but I'm enjoying the book so much that it's not a problem whatsoever. Like my motivation is such a strong force. My curiosity is such a strong mitigating force against that extra ambiguity, right? So yeah, I think there's a lot of wonderful stuff in within a lot of the arguments for the again, I guess the more academic sort of reasoning behind extensive reading, where we're talking about very specific percentages and also speed. So a big component of extensive reading, as it's defined by I think it's the Extensive Reading Foundation. They also talk about reading speed being very important, right? So there's a lot of really helpful stuff within that. And I have a whole series on my YouTube channel that I did with Jared Turner about extensive reading. But yeah, I'm not a fan. Pretty much in all of language learning, you will never hear me say like, never do this, or always do this, or like, this is the best and that's stupid. Like, I never say stuff like that because it's very often very subjective. It's case by case. And yeah, as I always say, I think that different language learning methods are tools. I'm not saying they're all equal, but they are all different. And in many cases, one tool is great for a certain job, a certain goal, and a certain outcome. Or one tool might be better for your current level, and a different tool might be way better for a different goal or a different outcome or a different level that you have. So that's my short version of my rant about that. Yeah. Oh, Billy is here. Good to see you, Billy. Thank you for joining. Billy says, so you played basketball in high school. May I ask what position you played? You seem rather tall. So I was a point guard primarily. I did also play shooting guard, but I was a point guard, and I was a very aggressive point guard. Actually, like I was the kind of point guard I loved going to the basket, and I my favorite thing was to just like bash the really huge, tall centers out of the way. I was never afraid to go down into the basket and just, but yeah, I loved, yeah, it was a long time ago. But for those of you who don't know, I literally moved to the United States to play basketball for high school there for the last 1.5 years of high school in America. So that's how that all started. Yeah, Norma says, paper books are so nice. I need more. Yeah. Cindy says, I'm really enjoying using the Kindle to read Soi, which is this book. And I discovered there's a built-in translate function when you highlight a phrase. Does everyone else probably already knew that? Norma points out she's been enjoying having the audiobook alongside. It's funny. I have the audiobook. I still haven't really used it yet. I definitely plan to. And it's really funny because, of course, a lot of the characters in this book have French names. And as someone who speaks French, it's very confusing to read, like to be reading in Italian, because I read out loud a lot. I'm always reading out loud. And yeah, so I would like to listen to the Italian audiobook so I can just hear how to say these people's names in an Italian way. It's kind of interesting. Let's see. Rex says, ciao from Italy. Ciao. Grazie mille per venire, partecipare con noi. Michael says, I'm pretty much exactly the same as you, Robin. I like reading on my Kindle, very practical, but I also much prefer physical book. Yeah. Jahira says, it breaks her heart that I had to donate my books. Yeah. It's been hard. Like, I gotta tell you, it's been hard. I actually just repurchased a book the other day. I'll go grab it just because, I love going to grab books from my bookshelf. In fact, where is that book? Let me see. One second. Okay. So this book, this is called Let My People Go Surfing. This was given to me by a good friend of mine, and I actually really, really was enjoying reading it. And it's basically about the founder of Patagonia, and a lot of really fascinating stories, but most of all, a very interesting philosophy on business. And so much of his philosophy makes a lot of sense to me. Long story short, this is one of the books I had to donate. It's a pretty big book, and it broke my heart, but just a few days ago, I stumbled across this book completely by chance inside like a coffee shop. They were just selling it. And so I got it, and it made me happy. I felt like I regained, but yeah, it really broke my heart. I mean, in some ways, I'm happy I got to donate, right? I hope that the books I donated find a good home, and I hope that they help someone else, but oh my God, it broke my heart. Yeah. By the way, funny story. So many of you who have been here for a long time, or if you've gone back and watched my old videos, you might know that there was like a 5-year period where I lived in, I think, 9 countries. It was absolutely insane. It was not as glamorous as you might think. It was a very, very tough time in my life, but it was very interesting. And during those 5 years, pretty much my whole life was inside of a very small suitcase. It was not a big suitcase. But the funny thing is, 70% of the contents of that suitcase were foreign language novels. So my French novels, my Japanese novels, and I was collecting as I went. I love collecting coffee mugs, as I think most of you know. I literally had a small coffee mug collection that I also was adding to. That was 90% of my suitcase. Like the other 10% was like a single set of clothing. That's like all I had, right? And when I would move to a new place, I would just donate the clothes that I had. I didn't have many, but I would donate my clothes, there was no way I was not taking my books. So I just think it's kind of funny because of all the things you could collect as somebody living out of a suitcase, books and mugs are probably two of the worst, or certainly the least practical things. But I loved my books so much, I was not willing to leave without them. And so for like 5 years, I carted a small suitcase of books around the world. Yeah, that's me. That's how much I love my books. So I love story time. I hope you like that little story. Yeah, Michelle says, I feel your pain, Robin, about moving and having no choice but to downsize your books. Yeah, I did this when I moved to New England. Yeah, it's really tough. Oh, Zubaida, good to see you. So Zubaida says, what do you think about this book from a literary perspective? So far, I like it. It's such an interesting style. Yeah, there's a lot of things about like the short chapters, but also the sort of poetic nature of a lot of it. I'm curious to know if the translations capture that. I would imagine that might be difficult to capture when you're translating this book. But like the first chapter, for example, there's this whole rhythmic aspect where it's like, you know, per vivere, il Vejoncourt comprava e vendeva bacchi da seta. And then a few lines down, il Vejoncourt aveva 32 anni, comprava e vendeva bacchi da seta. You know, there's this like lovely rhythm. And I don't know if that's captured in the translations or not. So there's that. There's the short chapters. Yeah, it's interesting. Again, reading this book as someone who knows Japan very intimately, that is an interesting aspect of this, right? I mentioned this briefly last time, but I haven't got too far in yet, but there are a few things like, again, the guy's name, Harakei, is weird, is a strange name to give a Japanese character. And of course, there's a lot of description. So that's one thing that I can't help but observe, and I'm interested, but I think that definitely impacts my impression. Which, but from a purely literary perspective, so far I'm enjoying it. But I think I need to get a bit further before I form my full opinion. So I would love if in the chat, people who have gotten further along or people who have opinions, certainly those of you who finished the book, I'd love to know what you thought just from a literary style perspective. That'd be good to know. Hey, greetings from Romania. Thank you. Jason says, I can just carry my Kindle and there can be loads of books versus a backpack full of books. Kindle all the way. Yeah, there's no question. It's insanely practical. Jackie says, I love ebooks. I usually read multiple books at the same time. And with my Kindle, I have all of them with me. Yeah, that's the funny thing. I also read several books at the same time. And so every time I leave my apartment with my backpack, I'm like, but what if I want to read this one? Or like, what if when I get there, I'm just really in the mood to read that one? So I bring everything I might want to read. It's a problem. So yeah, the ebooks, it's so hard to argue against them, you know? And I like ebooks. I like them. I mean, come on, look at this. Look at this beautiful book. Okay, like, come on. Like, look at these gorgeous pictures. You know, like, just some wonderful, wonderful stuff. I mean, look at that. There's something about like the shine of the page, like the texture. Oh, I love it, you know? The bread book. Remember the bread book that everybody either loved or hated on my old bookshelf? I still have the bread book. There was no way I was not bringing the bread book. Same thing. I can't imagine having that as an ebook. Let's see. Brigitte says, I struggle with translators. I tend to rely too much on it. Oh, hang on. In conversations in my target language, as I want to understand and answer very quickly, feels like I'm not doing progress. Do you mean like using a translating app, or do you mean just the process of translating in your head? Let's see. Jahira says, LOL, you sound just like me with note taking. I really enjoy the writing and physical process, but definitely a perfectionist and rewrite if it doesn't look right, especially in Japanese. Yeah. Michael says, to me, it's not so much about vocabulary, but getting used to the different grammar. But then again, right now, I'm probably only a high A2 in Italian. Yeah. Victoria says, I love hard copy books, the tactility of them, and I love writing and highlighting in my books. Yeah. Michelle says, I love cursive writing and calligraphy and practice it daily. Writing has always been very important to me because that is part of how I learn and retain info. Yeah, that is also a very good point. I find for me that handwriting does help me. It deepens the cognitive process. And I believe there is a pretty significant amount of academic literature on this topic, in terms of the learning benefits of writing by hand. And especially with Japanese, I personally spent probably many thousands of hours, handwriting characters. And a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people say, run for the hills, but I personally found, to be honest, a lot of the same people who refused to write kanji in Japanese, they also, 2 or 3 years later, were still struggling to remember them. And I found I was always extremely good at recognizing even really, really tiny, subtle differences between characters. And I think part of that was because I did so much writing. Now, of course, now we have apps where you can, write on a touch screen, which is also really cool. But yeah, it's an interesting topic. Let's see. Kushluk says, from where did you move? I moved from Oakland in California to back to my home country, the UK, where I have felt like the biggest foreigner ever since the day I got back. So that's really fun. Yeah, it's been strange. Let's see. Let's see. I'm going to read this anyway, and we'll see what happens. So LKM says, hi, Robin, off topic. Please ignore this if it's too much of a distraction from the book club. Are you okay with someone linking a video or two of yours in their blog? Yeah, absolutely. Hey, if you're gonna, you're more than welcome to put a link to my videos. Of course, if you're linking to the original video and, some kind of little attribution, that's certainly appreciated. But yeah, ultimately, I mean, if you're helping to share, my work with your audience and more people, I think that's wonderful. And if it can help to, if it helps your content, if it helps you reference something and make a point, then that's fantastic. So, let's see. Okay, let me try to catch up here. Oh no, I've lost it. So Meru says, talking about coffee mugs, I have found the best one yet a few weeks ago, and I'm loving it so much. Okay, so I vote that Meru should post a picture or make an Instagram post about this mug. It might have already appeared in some of your pictures, but I think there should be a dedicated post to the best mug ever because, I love a good mug. Lina da Silva says hello to everybody. Kara says, that's funny. The two things I bought during my holiday a few weeks ago, books and a mug. Absolutely. Oh, Aggie's here. Hey, Aggie, good to see you. Aggie says, while ebooks don't take up space on your shelves, they don't look cool on your shelves either. I hope you're able to replace your awesome book display soon. Yeah, I do have. I have a small bookshelf now, and I have one over here too. But yeah, I'm kind of traumatized. Like I'm almost scared to build up a book collection again. I think in the future, I hope that I'll never have to make such a sudden move ever again. So I would like to hope that in the future, if I move again, I'll have more time and hopefully more money to like, just to make arrangements so I don't have to do that. But I am a little scared now to acquire books again. So Jackie asks, knowing nothing about Japan, may I ask, why is the name weird or not so suitable? The reason why it's a bit strange is that what they've done is used Japanese sounds, right? Like hara, which is really funny because hara is a word that means, can mean stomach. So they've used words like hara could certainly exist, and kei, those sounds are certainly Japanese sounds that can be made, but that's just not like names are a really interesting institution when it comes to Japanese and also languages like Mandarin Chinese and others, right? Languages that are made up of characters are really interesting because characters play a huge role in names. And so, yeah, in Japan, for example, there's a large amount of names that are quite common. They could be written with different characters, right? So you might have a common name, but people might choose to write it using different characters that have cool meanings, and you can make really interesting things. And then there's a certain level of creativity, but you just kind of there are some things that just don't sound like something that would naturally be done by a native Japanese speaker. Like they wouldn't, and I think harake is like that. I think that's my opinion, and I believe a lot of Japanese people online have made that point that the name is a bit strange. So that's why. I'm curious to know if anybody disagrees or agrees. Anyone else who knows Japanese, or if there's any Japanese speakers, like native speakers in the chat. But that's my perception. Let's see. Chahira says, "I love story time. I feel that books are like having a special friend." I agree, except they don't mind if you don't visit daily. Sad to end books, but it's always wonderful to get reacquainted. I agree. That is a funny thing, actually. That's a funny aspect of books that is a bit like friends. Like you can lose touch with them, and then you can find them again somewhere else in the world, even, and suddenly be reacquainted. Just like a friend, which is interesting. You can have memories with them. You can. There's a lot of stuff. Yeah. Oh, good to know. So it seems like a few people have said that the rhythmic nature of Bariko's writing is indeed captured in the translations, which is good to see. I can imagine like the person working as a translator, that must have been a really interesting aspect of the project. Margarita says, that's part of Bariko's style. Each book is either literature and a poem at the same time. He's very distant from a traditional Italian style. Very cool. Okay, so Kara says, I like the style of the book overall. There are so many interesting details to talk about. Yeah. I'm still trying to figure out the best way for us to do that. I think that we'll definitely discuss the content more towards the end of the 6 weeks. But it is tricky because I'm sure a lot of us are like dying to discuss the details. But I'm scared about spoilers. I'm still trying to figure this out. But we'll get there. We'll figure this out as we do more book clubs. Let's see. Chahira says, I love story time. I feel that books are like having a special friend. I agree. Except they don't mind if you don't visit daily. Sad to end books, but it's always wonderful to get reacquainted. I agree. Chahira says, I love story time. I feel that books are like having a special friend. I agree. Let's see. Margarita says, traditionally in Italy, we write in long sentences full of subordinates. Yeah. You want to think about long sentences? My gosh, reading in Mandarin Chinese. Those like commas have a whole different usage. Like you can have like a whole page, just one sentence. It's really interesting. I think in the end you have to basically treat them as the new sentence basically a lot of times, but it's an interesting aspect of yeah. Let's see. Oh, Jackie wants to know the bread book story. I'll grab the bread book. Do you guys want the bread book? I'll grab the bread book. Okay. Here it is. This is the bread book. As you can see, it has it's been through a lot. I've had this book since 2012. And the funny thing is, this is from a bakery called Tartine Bakery in San Francisco. And when I bought this book, I never imagined I would even go to San Francisco. It wasn't until I literally walked past the bakery after moving to San Francisco, which I happen to live really close to there. It's just so amazing. I made the connection. I was like, oh my God. And it's now like the most famous bakery in San Francisco. So yeah, I love this book. It's primarily about baking bread, but the first part of the book is more like story time, some beautiful pictures, lots of great stories, stuff like this and this. So it's just, I love books like that. I adore just reading or listening to people's stories. I listen to probably hundreds, maybe not thousands, but I've definitely listened to hundreds and hundreds of interviews, podcasts. I'm always listening to just people's stories, whether it's a company or a business, certainly a skill or some kind of craft. I love consuming that stuff. And so I love books like this and this. By the way, this is fascinating. Like Yvon Chouinard, oh, what a guy. Like, yeah, I could ramble about that, but this is nothing to do with languages. So but I hope you like seeing the book again, the bread book. It's so funny. Like, I got so many comments about this book during that period on YouTube, and it's just really funny. Like, so many people were like, please remove the bread book, or like, why is there a bread book? Like, why? I don't know. I thought it looks nice. Anyway, okay. Let's see. We're just over an hour, but I will see if I can just kind of skim through the chat, see if there's anything particular. Let's see. When you're learning a language, do you read a book and move on to the next one, or read the first one more and more? It depends. I typically will come back to books a lot. So there are several books I've read in French that I can't wait to read again. So it kind of depends. Yeah, let's see. Okay. Kind of coming through here. Oh, salam from Iran. Salam. Very nice to see you. Veronica. Oh, thank you. Beijos da. Wait, is it Inglaterra? Hang on. My God, I haven't spoken Portuguese in so long, but I haven't said, yeah. Anyway. Thank you very much. Let's see. Oh, Flustered Custard says, by the way, what an amazing username. Just want to pop in and say your videos are so helpful for me. Aw, feels much more possible now. Oh, thank you very much for that. Oh, Larry Go says, I'm a native Japanese speaker, but I'm late today. No worries. Okay, let's see. I'm almost completely caught up with the chat. Let's see. Da-da-da-da. How could anyone not like the bread book? It always made my mouth water while watching your videos. I know, seriously. I love this book. Do you guys remember? Okay, one more book, one more, because this might be nostalgic for anybody who really watched my videos during that period. I love this book from one of my favorite illustrators, Christoph Niemann. Wonderful German man. And yeah, I love this book. So good. Just so good. Oh, there's a million pictures in here I could show you. Oh, let me find one. Oh no, maybe I shouldn't have done this. But yeah, there's just so much good stuff. It's a great book, and he does a lot of really cool stuff. Let me find one really cool one. Let's see here. He does all these really great pictures where he takes real world objects and then he sort of sketches around them. Oh, I just saw one that's relevant to this book club. Hang on. Do you get it? Because you know, Italy's like a boot. So anyway, so yeah, nostalgia for my lovely books. Yes, Jackie, a new series for Bread with Robin would be wonderful. Let's see. Okay, I'm actually caught up on the chat. Oh my God, look at that. Okay, well, here we go. I guess that's it for today. We're a little bit over an hour. I hope it wasn't too long, but thank you all so much for coming. Thank you all for joining, for sharing all your experiences in the chat. I have to tell you, like I said, I had a pretty good week, but in some ways it was a tough week, and I'm actually feeling really good after this live stream. Like it gives me so much energy, so much positivity, just being able to hang out with you all, and what a nice way to end the week. Like, what a really nice way to end the week. So I hope you all enjoyed it. If you're watching this in the future, then maybe it's a good way to start the week. But yeah, thank you all for coming. Cheers. I'm sending all the hugs, all the good vibes, all of the bread vibes. Unless it's like, you know, really late where you are, then vibes. But I'm sending the bread vibes anyway. And we'll have an amazing next week, and let's come back here next Sunday and let's share about all of our successes. Okay, so bye everybody. I'm dancing, doing the dance. I can actually dance, by the way. That's not how I would actually dance, but you know, what are you gonna do on a live stream? Okay. Bye. Sorry, I'm just reading all the final messages here because it makes me smile. Okay.